Imagine this for a second. Tonight, as millions of people across America are fast asleep in their beds, there's a completely different reality operating hundreds of meters right below them. Deep within the earth, in places where sunlight literally never reaches, there are massive machines manufacturing breathable air. There's electricity surging through totally self-sustaining grids. Human beings could survive down there for months at a time without ever stepping foot on the surface. Now, it's a confirmed historical fact that government bunkers exist. The history books have already answered that part. But, that's not actually the real mystery we're exploring today.
Okay, let's dive into this. We know for sure that scattered all across the country, these heavily fortified concrete and steel facilities are just sitting quietly in the dark. But the question that has absolutely captivated the minds of millions of people is way more expansive. People want to know, is there an entire interconnected hidden world lying beneath those known bunkers? And if there is, who exactly was that world built for? Well, to understand where these massive facilities and the truly explosive rumors surrounding them actually came from, we've got to rewind the clock a bit.
The catalyst for all of this takes us right back to 1945. The Second World War had just ended, and the world had just witnessed the absolutely terrifying, destructive reality of the atomic bomb. But the peace that followed was, well, incredibly fragile. Within just a few short years, two superpowers found themselves locked in a massive standoff: the United States and the Soviet Union. This, of course, was the Cold War. But it wasn't a war defined by bullets flying on a battlefield. It was defined by this ever-growing, totally suffocating fear. Every single morning, you'd see newspapers splashing massive headlines about nuclear weapons. Every political speech carried this heavy, lingering anxiety of potential war. There was this very real, very terrifying realization that if just a single missile was launched, the entire world could change in a literal instant.
And this looming threat forced the United States government to ask a pretty grim and, frankly, unimaginable question. If Washington is attacked, if all communication with the president is lost, if military headquarters are just completely wiped off the map, does America just end? Now, the government's definitive answer to that was a resounding no. But actually ensuring that no required a radical, completely unprecedented continuity strategy. They needed a backup plan. And that plan wasn't going to take place in the skies or anywhere on the surface. It was going to take place deep inside the earth. So military planners and engineers were called in. Geologists basically scoured the entire country, specifically hunting for massive mountains made of solid granite, because that would provide the ultimate natural protection against a nuclear blast. And that kicked off a massive, highly secretive construction phase in the 1950s at places like Mount Weather and Raven Rock. It was honestly an enormous logistical cover-up. They brought in heavy drilling equipment, but the most intense, earth-shaking work, they did that stealthily under the cover of darkness. If locals living nearby started asking questions about all the rumbling and the heavy machinery, they were simply brushed off and told, "Oh, it's just standard government construction." The public was intentionally kept completely in the dark while this massive subterranean safeguard was literally being carved out of the mountains.
I really want you to imagine making the descent into one of these completed facilities. Picture yourself walking up to what looks like a totally ordinary mountain, only to suddenly step through these impossibly thick, insanely heavy steel doors. And as you walk forward, the noise of the surface world, the wind, the birds, the traffic, it just completely fades away. It gets replaced by this quiet, eerie hum of massive machinery. You walk down one long, quiet corridor, then a second, then a third, until you suddenly find yourself standing inside a massive, sprawling control room, walls just completely lined with large screens monitoring global weather patterns, worldwide communications, and security alerts. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of these projects. These were not Hollywood movie sets. These were real, fully equipped continuity centers. We're talking massive, independent diesel generators for power. They housed immense water filtration systems, endless racks of food storage, full medical units, and vast living quarters. They were designed for one specific, incredibly sobering purpose: to allow the government and military command to survive and keep functioning, completely independent of the surface world, during a literal nuclear apocalypse. But here is exactly where the verified history ends and the real mystery truly begins. The extreme secrecy that surrounded these facilities was, obviously, absolutely necessary for national security. But it also meant that when the public eventually and inevitably found out about these few bases, well, their imaginations absolutely ran wild. It introduced a huge complication to the whole story. If the government successfully built these massive, hidden cities without any of us knowing about it, what else is down there that they haven't told us? It's just human nature to try and connect the dots, right? Even when the dots might not actually be there. So step 1, people learn that one massive, real bunker definitely exists. Step 2, the
The public naturally assumes that, well, if there's one, there must be a dozen more just like it hidden somewhere else. And then step 3. The leap is made that if there are dozens of these underground bases, surely the government built secret physical tunnels to connect all of them together. Just like that, a few verified facts quickly pave the way for massive, completely unverified theories.
And this speculation totally reached a boiling point with the arrival of the 1990s and the early internet. Suddenly, between the screeching dial-up tones and the early chat rooms, misinformation could spread globally in a matter of seconds. Viral maps began circulating online, claiming to show thousands of kilometers of secret, interconnected tunnels crisscrossing the entire United States. Videos were made, countless articles were written, and millions of people became entirely convinced that this sprawling subterranean city system was functioning right beneath their very feet.
So the crucial point is separating what we actually know for a fact from what is simply rumored. On one hand, we have the rock-solid historical facts, verified continuity bunkers. We know the government built highly secure facilities with emergency communications, living quarters, and independent power to survive the Cold War. On the other hand, we have the totally unverified claims, the thousands of miles of secret tunnels, and those sprawling interconnected underground cities. The thing is, despite extensive digging by researchers, no reliable public evidence has ever actually surfaced to support those more extreme claims.
Still, those internet claims absolutely persist today. Every so often, alleged whistleblowers come forward, claiming they had access to these highly restricted, deeply buried zones. They tell these wild stories of advanced, unreleased technology hidden away from the public eye. But we have to look at this impartially. Security experts and historians maintain that there is a complete lack of independent confirmation for these stories. There is simply no conclusive, reliable public evidence. The viral videos and the blurry photos, sure, they're super compelling to watch, but they just don't amount to verified proof.
As the saying goes, where evidence ends, imagination begins. Historians point out that extreme military secrecy just naturally breeds elaborate conspiracies. It makes sense, right? When sensitive military plans, defense systems, or crazy new technologies are developed, they are kept totally classified for years. And that gap in public knowledge? That is exactly where the human mind steps in to fill in the blanks. The secrecy slowly turns into mystery, and eventually, that mystery turns into a pretty wild story.
And the source material makes a very fair, very logical point here. Would any government actually publicly reveal all the details of a highly classified emergency facility? Of course not. It would defeat the entire purpose of national security. They are absolutely not going to announce the blueprints, the maximum capacity, or the full capabilities of the exact places designed to keep the nation running during its darkest hour. And because governments will understandably never share everything, the mystery is guaranteed to stay alive. But we have to immediately counterbalance that thought. Does limited information mean every single viral internet map is true? No, definitely not. Just because military secrets undeniably exist, and just because the government keeps classified facilities off the public record, it absolutely does not mean that the wild internet conspiracies of nationwide underground highways are factual. Limited information means exactly that. Limited information. It's not a blank check to suddenly validate every single rumor floating around on the web.
Yet the rumors had to start somewhere, didn't they? The wild maps and the sprawling conspiracies didn't just appear out of thin air. They were born from the shadow of actual verified projects. So, what exactly are those projects? What are the specific, very real locations that gave birth to the wildest underground myths in American history? Well, we are going to explore exactly that in part 2 of this explainer. We'll look at the verified command centers that sparked 1,000 theories and ask the ultimate question: is there still a secret down there waiting to completely shock the world? You definitely won't want to miss it.